I head up content strategy at BitTorrent, and I wanted to spend some time with you guys talking about what artists want. And I realize this is kind of a crazy slide. So just by way of beginning, and you guys are all super familiar with this, what a time to be alive. And this is the first of maybe a couple Drake references I'll drop in. But this is just another year of massive shift for creativity. We see that music now has a universal release date. We see that in the film world, day and date is a real thing. Apple now has streaming, so does Jay-Z, and you can buy an album on BitTorrent. What we're seeing is data access and data journalism are shedding light on the issues facing creators. What we're also seeing is many platforms making rules and hard coding some of the rights available to these artists. And what we wanted to do was better understand their world, better understand their experiences, and in so doing, understand the state of creativity today. So why BitTorrent? How does BitTorrent know what artists want? So what we've done at BitTorrent, starting in 2013, is set up a direct-to-fan distribution platform for artists, empowering people to keep, sell, and share the stories that they hold in common. Today, we reach over 200 million fans, and we work with a network of 30,000 artists, including Tom York and the BBC. So we put it to artists. We asked them, how is the internet changing your work on a daily basis? We asked over 200 of our publishers. We asked a mix of full-time artists. We asked a mix of filmmakers, musicians, writers, and graphic novelists, and many more. And here's what we found, right? The digital revolution is primarily about independence. The single biggest change impacting creators working today isn't streaming, it's not virtual reality, it's not even crowdsourcing. It's the ability to get your work out without a studio, without a label deal. And largely, artists are optimistic about this change. What we wanted to dive into is how is this impacting the creative workforce on a day-to-day basis? In what way is newfound independence changing the way that people work? In what ways is it changing the nature of the art object that we experience every day? What we can see in the creative community is really the profound impact of community, the profound impact of reaching your own audience, and the need to do so as the primary challenge that all creators face. We can see community changing the way distribution works online. We can see communities decentralizing it. The majority of artists that we work with, they distribute across multiple touch points. They distribute across multiple platforms. Art, in many ways, has become ubiquitous. And we're also seeing community completely reshape and reconfigure the traditional release cycle. It's compressing it, it's accelerating it. We see the majority of artists publishing work every single month. And that profoundly changes what an art object is, what a creative good is. It's less something finished, and it's more conversation. And maybe the best example of this is what we saw in the past couple of weeks with Drake, with Hotline Bling. The ability to imagine a video not as film, but instead as source code. The ability to imagine not a painting, but a canvas as a social object, as a source of collaboration between you and fans. So we wanted to dig into this, right? This is really interesting. What are people doing to reimagine what stories are within the internet context? So the first thing that we noticed is that, in fact, the download is not dead. The download is, for many creators, a primary source of revenue. And digital sales from this stream are a big part of their income. The thing that we saw within BitTorrent and within BitTorrent downloads is the way that they're using download as a format has changed dramatically. So the average download that we see encompasses over 2 media formats. It's about a gig, and it can span music, film, art, photography, all in a single experience. We've seen over 5 million transmedia projects downloaded. And just to kind of touch on what these formats are and what these changes are and the sort of experiments that storytellers are taking within downloads, here's a project by Cut Copy. What they did was they created, they shot, and then they distributed the first 3D movie, the first 3D music video. And then they shared all of the 3D print files with their fans. So imagine that there's 3 million versions of this video out there on the internet being shot and being reshaped by fans. We did a project with Moby to basically open source an album. So Every single stem to every single song on his album Innocence was given over to fans. So imagine an album that's been downloaded over 8.9 million times, that changes every time it's listened to, that's reconfigured by every single listener, by every single fan. And then we did a project with an artist called Uzi, which involved an Easter egg hidden in an album download. So you could Shazam every single track, and by doing so, you could unlock a piece of art hidden somewhere else on the internet. So these types of substantial and experimental stories, these types of stories that are happening inside downloads and across the internet, are kind of a remarkable reconfiguration of what we see as the art object. And they point to a future where music isn't just MP3, where music is not just album, where films are bigger than video. And they point to a future where creativity is something that's held in common as a collaboration between artist and fan. And then sort of going beyond story, what we wanted to look at is really how are artists making it? How are monetization strategies changing? And how are sort of collaborative pricing strategies changing the value of art and sort of the structure of revenue there? So we asked this question to artists a number of ways. And every time that we asked it, what we found is that creators valued their communities more than they valued fair compensation. So what we're seeing is kind of a paradigm shift within the own economies of creative, where art is an investment in audience building. So we see a huge number of artists giving away content for free as an investment in the audience that they can reach in the future and that they can monetize. We're also seeing artists engage at large scale with sort of new pricing strategies and pricing strategies that are created in collaboration with fans. So earlier this year, we did a project with David Cross for a film called Hits. It was a pay-what-you-want theatrical release. It was also a pay-what-you-want download. The pay-what-you-want screening sold out, and the pay-what-you-want download was downloaded 1.5 million times with an average price of $6. So this is something else that we see as a very positive and encouraging trend, the idea that the value of an art object is something that's set and decided between creators and their audiences. So just kind of taking stock of the landscape and what's going on and really understanding what we as tech people, what we as creators, and what we as fans can give back to the artists in this ecosystem. One of the things that we noticed is that there's a discrepancy gap between what artists where artists would like to make their money and where they currently make their money. And there's certainly room for innovation around digital sales. There's certainly room for growth around digital subscriptions, both of which are sources of revenue that artists hope to see increase. And when we talk to artists, I think we can distill it down to three things that we can do as tech people and again as fans to help this ecosystem survive and to help this ecosystem thrive. So the first thing that we need to do is think about how we can help DIY scale, right? So if you have 59% of artists being concerned with community building as the first order of business, how can we make this more sustainable? If artists are releasing work constantly, 24/7, if they're releasing their work for free, what can we do to empower them to do this better? The second thing that we need to think about is how we can end data outages. We can see 42% of artists choosing platforms based on access to data, yet we know that many of the internet's major platforms still are data black holes. If you release your work on iTunes, you don't necessarily know who buys it. If you release your work on Netflix, you don't necessarily know who your viewers are. And this is truly one of the human rights issues of our era. Data access is critical to building sustainable creative careers. And then the last thing that we can do as platforms, as technologists, and again, as people who care about content, is get smart about innovation and flexibility when it comes to digital monetization. So we can see artists deferring sales for fan bases to build up their own communities. We can see artists releasing work for free. And we can still see systems putting in place traditional monetization strategies like ads and like subscriptions that aren't generating quite as much revenue as artists are hoping for yet. So with greater flexibility and with greater innovation in this area, for sure, we can help build a sustainable future for creators. So that's it.